Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth annual Hamilton Crossing Under the Lights Doubles Tournament. This is a charity event to raise money for Bartow Christmas, to give kids a nice Christmas, and that is TD Zach Andreessen on the tee. Great doubles tournament we're able to put on every year with the help of the Bartow County Parks and Rec Department. And here I am throwing my 8-2. Zach already parked that with his matrix, so I'm just giving it a good run, a little bit long, but we could have put it either one, but Zach was parked. That is drive for show, putt for show. Tim Hedin throwing a great shot out there.
Right across it.
He has probably the hardest shot to capture out here since he throws so quick. That is Max, Tim's son. And Max throws roughly 9 miles. If you imagine a young Simon Lizotte, that's kind of how Max throws. And Ben McMains with his partner Jeff Gary. They're Ben and Gary's. Be our final group on this feature card. Throwing a nice shot out there. And here is Jeff. Nice smooth shot. He's throwing smooth backhands all night long. And here's Max putting for birdie. Easy shot from there. Jeff trying to tap in from Ben's shot. That is not a problem. And letting Zach do the honors for the solo birdie there. Here on hole 2, you got an out of bounds sidewalk. And there's a fence out of bounds right there by those trees. So you got to hug this line pretty fast. Zach's throwing a wild honey, throwing it out over the sidewalk. And actually, a guy walks out of the shadows there that we didn't see. He basically parked the hole, but went and apologized to the guy. He didn't know that the disc was right over his head. So no harm, no foul. And here's my shot, throwing the low, skippy forehand shot, getting up by the basket on the right side. Luckily, we're both in the circle. We got options. Looks like Max is going, I can't tell if that's a mid-range. It looks like a mid-range there. Smashing on a hyzer, getting a really nice flip up and ride there. And he is basically parked. I think he's within about 8 feet. Tim commented he didn't even kind of want to throw after that, but he's going to give it a shot anyway. I told him he could run it, but he said that that's no different than the shot he was going to throw anyway. So he's out there safe in the field, and maybe he was right. He didn't really need to throw there. Jeff putting it right out in the open. Nice safe shot. The easiest possible location for an up and down. And Ben's going forehand to try to get them a little bit closer. Pumping it out wide, pretty smooth. I'm pretty sure that is a felon that he throws a lot forehand. And they're at about 50 feet for that putt, and Jeff just misses that one right side. Ben giving a nice little stepper there, and he just misses as well. So we're putting for my drive. It's just inside the circle, and Zach taps it in no problem. And since Max was parked, we didn't even bother filming him. Zach throwing a nice safe shot out there in the field. We had some people still putting here, so we're letting the people who were not going for the shot over the field throw first. If you can't really see it, the basket is behind it's in between the bleachers and the dugout over here. And I'm kind of going for it, giving it a medium run over the field. Check up there, right near the bleachers, really happy to make it over the fence. It didn't look like it was going to make it for a second. Max is also going for it. And he crushes this shot, but gets a little bit nose up, and it stalls out on him a little bit. It easily had the power to get there, but not quite the right angle. And Tim is going to play a slightly smarter shot. Dad to the rescue, going right around the edge of the corner there to give them a super easy chance to get a 3 on this one. This is a par 4. Ben throws the crap out of this right here. We thought it was going to go out of bounds. It actually finds the door to the dugout opening and goes through. They've got like a 30-foot putt. Here's Max throwing from Tim's location. He's not happy with it, but it's not that bad of a shot, really. Tim's trying to push it a little bit wider and give them a better look at the basket from there. Skipping into that shot, keeping it nice and wide. and it filters down. They've got a nice putt from there. We missed my putt from about 45, 50 feet. But here is Jeff putting for eagle, just barely high. They're barely inbounds. I thought that Ben had this putt all day, but watch this here. It goes in, and
Oh
the
my
nubs
goodness.
grab the rim and push it right back out. Absolutely brutal, but they'll tap in for the birdie. And Max, nice putt there to get them the birdie on that one also. This one is interesting. It's an island hole. You have to be inside the playground with an elevated basket. Zach's disc is leaning on the edge, but it didn't quite make it back in. I'm throwing a big spike hyzer with my reptilian Gila. It swings back just in time and checks up in bounds. That's all you're really trying to do there is get inside the square so you have a putt. Max throws one roughly 15 miles in the air, and it also checks up on the cross tie there, not quite in bounds, but Dad to the rescue, skipping up over the cross tie in bounds, gives them a great look for birdie. If you don't make the mandatory landing area, the drop zone is actually not terrible. It's by the rocking bee down there you see on the right side. So you've got about a 25-footer. I thought Jeff had this one. It didn't quite have the juice, so both of them missed this one and will be putting from the drop zone. Zach putting from my shot there on that elevated basket, and he cashes that. Putt looking as good as the bucket hat doesn't. And Max looking for their birdie from Dad's shot, and he knocks that one in as well. Ben trying to save par, and just a little high. You can't leave this one short. And Jeff saves it for them. So hole 5 here is actually one of the more interesting ones. I feel like it's a true multi-shot par 4 where you have to hit this line or do this and be stupid and risky. Since Zach already kind of put it in the ideal landing area, I went a little bit crazy, but didn't execute. Tim gets his in a good spot there, but watch this shot from Max. This is basically the ideal line. Smashes it. That's close to 500 feet right there. It's in the high 4s, and they are in circle 2 on this very tricky par 4. Jeff's trying to play a little bit more safe than Max, throwing the low hyzer. Doesn't quite get around the corner of the field, but he tells Ben to go for it. So Ben's giving it a shot to go a long way as well, and unfortunately,
maybe
he hyzers out a little bit early and ends up on the tennis courts. They'll be throwing from Jeff's shot. Probably playing for par at this point, but Ben throws a nice safe hyzer. You got OB everywhere here. That sidewalk, the field, the tennis court, and the road on the right are all out of bounds, so you really got to hit these spots. They both execute this one really well, and I think they were within about 3 feet of each other. So we're throwing from Zach's spot here, trying to get into the circle for the birdie. And Zach's in bounds, but his shot's a good bit shorter than he was looking for it to be. I'll throw a very similar line. Try to get up here and give us a putt. I kind of lost sight of where the basket was for a second and underthrew this one just a little bit. It's pin high, but a little bit more right than I would have wanted. We still have a putt, though, at about 34 feet. Now Jeff trying to get up there by the basket from their second shot. Gets him in the circle left side. Then Ben pushing up here. I believe that's a berg he's throwing there. So this Tim throwing for the birdie. Right about 60 feet. Max giving it a great run. Hits the band. I can't believe he missed that. It looked so good the whole way. Zach and I putting for the birdie from up here a little bit right side. And then I made the same mistake and could not get it to cut into the basket. So we'll have to settle for a par there on one of the more challenging holes. Jeff, unfortunately, was unable to save the par, but Ben up there, and he will tap it in for them. So it'll be Max and Tim on the box. They're driving for show and putting for show so far as well. Max threw this one really well, but got a little bit nose up, so it's not quite where he wanted. It's more left side, but it's not as bad as his reaction had it be. And then Zach is going to throw, I think that's his Wild Honey again, maybe a D2, and he's over on the left side by first base. And I throw like the worst shot ever, overturn it, and end up by second base. We are definitely not using that. Ben with a nice backhand hyzer there. I think that's the Castoplast Idog he was throwing a lot. And then Jeff going with a nice smooth hyzer. Not a bad shot, but not quite where Ben was, so they'll throw from Ben's shot. Zach trying to get us there from circle 2, just missing, but he gave it a good chance. I'll give it my run as well, and really not happy with that effort. Gave it no power at all. But you do what you can, and we move on. Putting from Ben's shot here. Making it look pretty good. Give it a little shimmy for the made putt. And then Max and Tim will come up and putt after Tim had one of his rare misses on this hole. The next one here is a crazy one where you're thrown from the press box over the backstop here on hole 7. It's really dicey. There's not a lot of room up there, and the ideal line puts your hand where those posts kind of are. Tim puts his kind of on the fringe of the grass in the outfield, and the basket's on left center. Max is throwing an X-Cal here, and I didn't get the audio, but he torques it over. It actually goes about 150 feet long, never fades back, and he was yelling, "Be an X-Cal," and it never decided to be one. Zach's going forehand from here.
Not enough.
Gets it up there pretty nice, but it's a little bit short and right. I'm going to try an A2 and a very similar shot to what Zach did, but try to push it a little more.
All right.
And I did everything right, but didn't throw it quite hard enough, so we're at about 80 feet. Ben going backhand, and he's got some cojones to do so. Gets it up there by the outfield fringe as well, just right at 50-ish feet. Jeff trying to get them a little bit closer, but that height is a problem for a lot of people. He was not the only one to hit the net that night. Zach going stepper with a glitch and puts it right into the basket. So I'm going to try to give it a better run. And it wasn't bad, just a little bit left. So we'll settle for a par here. Jeff throwing from the outfield or infield there, hits the cage. He had a few where I thought he was going to make it, and they ended up just being a tiny bit low. Ben gives it a great run. He's a little bit high. Max from Tim's shot, that literally just missed right. It was not far off at all. Tim with a nice spinner. They're under the basket, so we're all taking par there. The next hole is behind that. It's in between that house there that Max just nailed on the right. It's a concession stand and bathroom, and then the fence of the basketball courts on the right side. Tim's going to step up here with a nice smooth backhand, and since Max is out of bounds, they needed that one. So they are a little bit short, but they're putting. Zach throws his a little bit lower than he wanted to, but it's pin high on the left side, just outside the circle, probably like 40 feet. I throw a great forehand. It checks up right behind the basket and then decides to roll about 80 feet. So maybe should have gone mid-range on that one. Ben with a nice smooth backhand, or Jeff rather, with a nice smooth backhand, gets him up there with a putt, but not quite where he wanted to be distance-wise. And Ben pumps it down there. He puts it pretty close to the basketball court, but they've got to look. Ben with that stepper, not quite what he wanted there, but they have an easy tap-in par. Jeff just a little bit high. So we're throwing from Zach's here, since mine was a good bit long. Distance is about the same, and Zach just misses that one. So I'm going to try to redeem us from about 45 feet here.
Get it.
I had one of my better moments of the night there with that nice long putt. This is a very interesting hole. So it's a slightly recessed basket inside the triple mando of the uprights there. Tim throws a great shot. It's shorter than he wanted, but it's honestly fantastic. That's about how you want to play it. And then Max is trying to get one in there right by the pin and flips it a little bit more than he meant to. Zach actually, it's a better shot than he's reacting. It's a little short, but we have a putt from there. I'm going to try to run it with my iguana mid-range here. And just didn't get it quite wide enough. That's the line, but it's about 8 feet too far left. Then stepping up here with what I believe is a proxy. And he's just going to smash this sucker flat. It's got a Hulk fist stamp on it, or a die on it, the humidity. It almost goes in. So they're putting from inside the uprights there. And Jeff throws a nice shot, but they'll putt from Ben's because he's right in line with the basket. Zach wounds the basket there, but not quite enough to get it in. And I just sailed that one right. Not happy with that at all. And they're putting here from Ben's drive that was darn near an ace. And he is able to get the solo birdie. Max putting from Tim's shot will as well.
Oh, yeah.
The next hole's a kind of tricky one. We're aiming uphill, and it's inside of a tire swing. So you've got to get it close enough so where the chains from the tire swing don't impede your putt. Tim gets him up there in about a 50-foot range, but not quite where you wanted to be. Ben throws this one fantastic. Hits the tree to the right of the basket, and they've got around a 25-foot putt, but it's got a little bit of tree in the way. Zach throws it up there real nice. It's in the open, easy up and down, but I'm trying to bite off just a little bit more, so we'll have a legit shot at birdie here. I'm going carnivore and trying to throw it on hyzer so it'll skate up on that right side, maybe get some skip off the path. The line was perfect, but I hit the same tree that Ben did, so we're still putting from 25, 30 feet with the tree in our face. Max giving it a good effort from around 50, but this is a really hard shot. Tim almost pulls it off, but they'll tap in for a par there. Zach's trying to figure out how to get around this tree without the chain coming into play, and he gives it a great effort. I'm going to try the Anheuser side. And honestly, the line was right, and it just holds a little bit too far right and chains out. Jeff and Ben are putting from just a little further left, and I thought Jeff had this one, but Ben is going to come to the rescue and knock that one in.
They really got pretty hot through this middle section of the course. Next hole is throwing underneath this sign up onto the hill. You've got an OB sidewalk short and then OB road long. The kind of throwing window there freaks a lot of people out, and we didn't have a ton of great looking shots on this card. Tim's trying to kind of figure out how he gets under there with no problem. And spins it up there looking good, but it settles on the path, so he's out of bounds.
Oh, man.
Putting a good face on it, though. And Max throwing up there, he looked like he lost his footing just a little bit on that one. I think it sails out of bounds on him, so they'll be putting from just outside the sidewalk. Zach going nice whippy forehand there. I think that was the Wild Honey again. And then I'll go Justice forehand here. Check up just to the left of the basket, and we're putting back downhill. So that's more or less what I was really hoping for there. And pretty happy with that shot. So Ben will be first, putting from about 40 feet. I feel like they've been all over the basket, both Ben and Jeff. If they had made a few of the ones that were just high or low, they would have been really in the hunt. So Max saving the 3 for him there since they were both OB, and Zach's putting from my drive. No drama, just tapping it on in. And then he's throwing a great drive here. This is a Clash Disc cookie in the tone plastic that I kind of made fun of him for throwing. And then he parked it, so I had to take it back. Especially after I throw my mid-range way left. We could have putted it, but he was on the pole. So no point in doing that. Ben pushing a drive down there. It looked great out of his hand. I think that's a mid-range, and it just pushed way more left than it looked like it was going to. And Jeff's slinging it back up there. He's in bounds, but I think that Ben is still a little bit closer. And Max just pures this. Absolutely smashes it. It hits the backstop, and they're putting from about 22 feet right there on the back brick wall. But Tim's shot wasn't bad either. He's just a little bit more left also. There's Ben's attempt from his drive down there by the dugout. Jeff giving it a decent look so they can tap it. And there's Tim from Max's shot. No drama there. And I'll tap in from Zach's because he put it on the pole. This one here is one of the ones with a dicier starting area. You really need to push it close to that opening without hitting anything. And then you have to throw it over the baseball field. And the basket's elevated on top of a picnic table. I'm just shoving my stego. If you pause it there, you can see how close to that pole it really was. It was inches, but it pretty much parked it. So that was kind of cool. Tim throwing nice smooth backhand, and watch this flight. Beautiful hyzer. Skips up off the fence and right by the pin. Great throw there, and he is pumped. Max actually gives it a really nice effort as well. He's in the circle longish, but they'll probably throw from Tim's there since he's on it. Jeff couldn't quite clear the fence there the second time, but it didn't really matter because Ben throws, I think that's his Berg again, and just plops it down right here next to the basket so Jeff can tap in the 12-foot putt. Maxwell as well, and then Zach from mine. So this one's a funky one. The basket's inside the dugout. It's only about 240, but you do have to get it in a decent spot to make your putt. Zach's pretty pumped about his, so I'm kind of running it. Slipped a little bit, and actually threw the perfect line, but about 3 feet too high, so it goes over the dugout and out of bounds. Max is going to try to push a putter down there with a little bit of hyzer. And it actually worked out okay, but he's a little bit cut off by the fence, so it's going to be a bit of a tough spot. Tim throwing now, and he's a little bit more in the open after his kick off the wall, but they've got a decision to make. They want a longer putt that's a little bit harder or one that's pinched off just a little bit. And then Ben is the king of the dugout, apparently, because he skips it right up into the dugout. That'll be an easy tap into for Ben and Jeff. Jeff trying to give it a little bit of a run since this was already in a great spot, but a little bit short. And Max is trying this lean out putt here. This is a really, really challenging angle, and he just comes up short. Tim trying to go high over the post. And I like his idea, but didn't quite work out. Zach cuts it off, but somehow stays in bounds, and I missed ours as well. So we both par, and then Ben and Jeff tap in for their birdie. This hole is kind of a funky one because you're throwing from this offset angle to an elevated basket in between those two high sets of bleachers. And none of us threw this particularly well. The line was a little bit different than it looked off the tee, and Tim ends up on the field there. And then Max just straightens his out right into the light pole. So we have a grouping of disc over here on the left side. Zach's is going to end up on the bleachers here. And then my shot was not, it was about the same as Tim's. I gave it too much hyzers, pushing over there, and ends up by home plate. So none of us threw that one particularly well, but so we have to go over this set of bleachers to have a look at the elevated basket. Tim actually gives it a decent run there in a good range. Max with a stepper. That one actually hit some metal. Jeff floating that one in. It's nice and safe. But Ben's really going to try to go for it since they've got to tap in from that location. Up and over, and it looked really good. Zach's is a little bit long, and I also hit the pole on that one, but we'll all have to settle for par. This is one of the holes that people love talking about. It's up and over the backstop. It's only about 90 feet, but hitting the line correctly is super challenging. I've never played it that well before, but I'm trying something new this time. Zach trying to go up and over, but he didn't quite make it. I'm going to throw a soft A2 and try to land it by the third base, and it rolls back right to within about 20 feet. So it ends up working just how I was hoping it would. And Max bounces off the backstop onto the roof, and he's not real happy with that one. His shoulder hurt him a little bit after that, but Tim was able to step up, throw the nice smooth hyzer, and knife in right by the pin, so it didn't really matter. Ben and Jeff throwing from about 40 feet. They both barely missed that one. Zach has an unfortunate missed putt on that one, so I'll just tap it on in for us to get the birdie there. And then Max will tap theirs in. Tim's shot was beautiful. This next one is another island hole where the basket is on the bridge of the playground. I get us a good location. I hit the tic-tac-toe board there, but not as good as Tim's. He will hit the top of the basket and skip a little bit long. That would have been an amazing ace. Really good shot there by Tim. So Max is up here trying to get them a little bit of an easier putt. Going to throw it a little bit softer and check up short. Jeff pushes his down here. It's kind of under the slide on the left side. That's not a bad spot. Gives him a look, even though it's not quite perfect. Ben hits his very in a similar spot to where I did. It hits the inside of the slide, goes across the path, and actually kind of long, so they didn't have a good look from there. Tim and Max putting from Max's shot here, trying to get through those slats. That's a very challenging proposition. Ben trying to make sure the disc is going to fit there through the walkway over by the slide, so they have a chance for the birdie. And he just misses it by inches. Unfortunately, Jeff did as well. Tim and Max with a comebacker. This is a really hard position. You want to give it some hyzer so it'll fit through those slats, and he got it through, but still dinged it, so it threw it off target. And Tim's going to try almost a straight up and down vertical shot here. Or is he? Yeah, going with the up and down horseshoe look, and he sticks the landing there. Zach's thinking about how to get his through here. Is it turbo? Has it backhand? How is it? It's not far, but he hits both sides. I hit the thing too, so we have to settle for a par on that stupid hole. Zach's pushing a nice backhand hyzer there. He's in a nice safe position. And Jeff does a very similar shot where he's out in the open as well. These guys are throwing this shot really clean and really smart. It's a par 4 in the 440, 480 range. Some of these guys can reach it, but it's not an easy shot. Max is unfortunately out of focus. I got some rain on the lens here for a second. It took me a minute to realize it. But he smashes one over the field here. It probably goes about 420, but it's left side. And they've got a nice layup from there, but not quite what he was looking to do. I get way under this forehand and it ends up on the sidewalk on the right side. So that'll be a basically unusable shot. And Ben throws probably the best shot of any of us. Goes with a octane out over the field, flexes out really nice, and it pushes into a great spot to lay up. So we end up laying up pretty good from Zach's shot. Both of ours were within about 30 feet, so should be an easy 3. Here's Jeff from Ben's location. Nice smooth hyzer, gets it to check up. Rolls back from the culvert a little bit, but Ben's able to actually throw it just a little bit closer. So they've got a couple shots inside the circle as well. And we'll all be putting for 3 here. And with that save from Jeff, we all make the 3. So the whole 19 here is going to be a kind of peninsula shot with an elevated basket on top of a power box. Zach did not get in a great shot, so I knew I had to push this one close with the forehand to try to get us a birdie. And it skips up there to about 10 feet, so I'm pretty happy with that one on this risky shot with a lot of out of bounds. Tim throws his in a pretty safe location. He's very near where Zach landed. But it didn't end up being that important because Max just smashes this one, tons of hyzer, and it rides up and checks up right by the basket, no skip or anything. Really great shot there. So Jeff will be leading off for Ben and Gary's. And unfortunately, his does not skip back inbounds for him there. And Ben goes back to the Edog that he's been throwing really well. And it gets inbounds, but he's a little bit long. So they've got about a 60-footer, which is more than he wanted to bite off, but they're going to give it a good run. As Ben misses just low in that elevated basket, Jeff will give it a good shot, and he about made that one. And Zach will tap ours in from my location, and Tim will do the same. Unfortunately, on the final hole, my camera got a bunch of water on it. I didn't capture every shot, but Max crushes his. He is over on the right side, inbounds, but looking really, really good. Tim did not bother to throw after that crush. Ben throws it essentially ideally. I think he throws that fission octane again, flips it up, tons of distance, and he is looking at a great location on the right side as well. Jeff, he said he shouldn't throw either, and maybe he shouldn't have because they didn't end up using theirs. We're throwing from Zach's shot here. And maybe I didn't need to throw this hole because Zach threw it out in the middle of the fairway, and then he parked that one. I throw my carnivore pretty darn nice, but for some reason it never really checks up. I'm pin high at about 40 feet. So Jeff is trying to get them in a position for a birdie putt, but he goes a little bit long. And there's a fence there to make the comeback putt a little bit tricky, and then Ben's kind of cut off on the left side as well. Tim throwing from Max's crush there. A little bit left side, but they've got to putt around that tree from that location if they need it. But they don't, because Max just puts that little flip-up putt right under the basket, and it looks great. Jeff knocking in that long 35, 40-footer from behind the tree line there. Well, our cards ended up 14, 12, and 10 down, and we have a four-way tie at 16 down for first place. That was Chris Sears, and then Neil, his partner here. We're doing a CTP throw-off for first, second, and third place. West Ball throwing his shot up there. He's a little bit right side, but I think he's in the game at least. That is Joe Wiggins from the Bruvs throwing perfect-looking mid-range shot.
That's one of the better ones so far.
Just a little right side. Pooh Bear, Jake Wiederhold going with the wide backhand play. Looking pretty solid, but a little bit long. Jonathan Rollins from Tuck and Roll. Unfortunately, his partner had dipped out already. Didn't realize we were doing a playoff.
Jonathan.
But Jonathan cuts it off a little bit left side. But we're walking up here to check distances and see how we end up. Everybody's seeing where their shots are. Chris is faking everybody out because he actually threw 2 shots and one of them didn't count. So the one that would have won is the one he's picking up there, but that was not the one that counted. And it looks like Mr. Joe's shot there was the closest.
Is it you, Joe?
With Neil's being second. So the Bravs, Joe and Jake,
Congratulations,
will
fellas.
take down the win. Chris and Neil in second. West Ball and Mason Sass third place.